One of the major tasks of any small group or any group situation is often decision making. So a collective group of people have to make a decision together, and one person just can't decide for them. So in order to do that, you need what are called effective functional communication practices. By the word functional here, I just mean the ability to get the group to the point where a decision can be made. To get the group to make a decision and move or feel commitment to that decision. Functional communication, there are three kind of key functional communication practices. The first involves overseeing a functional process. The second is what I call dialectic, and the third is what I call rational arguments. To oversee the process, we have to acknowledge what parts of the process are necessary for a group to make a decision. And there's 5 kinds of parts for any group decision-making process. First is collecting information. So a good small group communicator is able to collect all the relevant information from all the resources in the room. That usually involves asking questions or asking people to participate or to give information to the whole group so everyone knows what they need to know. Lots of small group practices go off the rails when not enough information is given. I myself was at a meeting that I was leading the other day on a report from the dean's office, and I left out 2 key pieces of information which created all sorts of confusion. The group got upset and derailed, and when I finally did offer those pieces of information, the group process got back on track toward the decision. So a good group communicator is able to collect information. Second, a good group communicator is also able to identify values. They're able to say or to articulate what's important behind the decision or what's important behind the information so that the values are clear to the group. That involves some degree of articulation usually of implied assumptions about what we value, and making sure that it's clear that everyone is understanding the values behind the problem in the same way. Third, a good small group communicator is able to articulate a range of solutions. So there's never just one way to solve a problem, and we're better at small group communication when we're able to articulate a range of solutions, and the process will evolve more effectively if there is a range of solutions in place. Next, you have to identify pros and cons of each solution. So a good small group communicator is able to articulate the goods and the bads for each potential solution so that it doesn't feel like one solution is naturally dominant or preferred, but rather that each solution is being given a fair shake. And finally, a good small group communicator is able to help the group reach consensus about the decision. So to take all that information, those values, those potential solutions, and generate a consensus, or at least articulate that consensus. So that's governing the process. So as a group communicator, you need to know that any process of decision-making has to involve those parts. If one's missing, you need to get back to the work of doing that one part. 2 other, I think, important attributes of functional communication. One's what I call dialectic. And dialectic is, if I'm going to put it as simply as I can, it's the ability to find middle ground between opposing positions. So when you're involved in that process I just described, sometimes you'll find disagreement. You'll find disagreement about information. One person might share one bit of information, another person might have a contradictory bit of information. A person skilled at dialectic will find the common ground between those 2 things and articulate that common ground so it doesn't seem like there's strong opposition within the group. So practicing dialectic is a great way to enhance your functional communication skills. And the last functional communication skill is that in that process, you'll often require rational argument. For me, rational argument is the ability to articulate evidence and justification for a position. Evidence maybe it's the evidence behind some information that's given. Maybe it's the reasoning behind the values that you're articulating. Maybe it's a justification for one option being included or another option being included. Someone who's skilled at rational argument offers full justifications for positions in a neutral way, in a relatively neutral way, in a way that doesn't implicate personalities or people in the group. So you've got to govern the process, and then inside the process, you've got to engage in dialectic and rational argument. If you're able to do those things, you're going to be skilled at functional communication in group settings.